And I'm back, John Alite Show. So I want to do an interesting show today because people always write to me from every country. And they're always asking me, oh, I want to be in mobster. I want to join the mob. And how do I do that? And I kind of get a kick out of it, but it's really not, uh, it's not a funny subject. But I will tell you, I'm against it. Anybody that's from the street is able to hustle on the street. You can hustle legally. We just didn't have the confidence because we all came from the same thing. We didn't see what's out there in the world. We didn't go to other countries. We didn't go to rich neighborhoods. We didn't go to shows. We didn't have the clothes that you see other people wearing. So we try to find a way out of that. And I've discussed this before, whether it's lottery tickets you're buying, whether it's gambling, whether it's, going to try to win some big money somewhere, or whether it's robbing or selling drugs. Those are all the things and becoming a criminal because you're trying to get the F out of our neighborhoods and to a better life. And the only way we know how to do it, because we're not really taught, and then it's also our parents. We come from some of us broken homes and no money, and our parents didn't know any better either, so they didn't know how to teach us. So I don't go for, poor me. I don't believe in that. After spending almost 2 decades in prisons, poor me doesn't work. The only thing that does work is how do I change my life? How do I replicate the guy who's successful? How do I become a good person and a citizen? And a lot of it begins with God, right? Faith, humanity, being pleasant, not hating yourself, loving yourself, psychologically, visualizing what you will be in 5 years, what you want, find something that you love to do. I can go on. But those are the things that you need to do. And biggest thing is, and I said it on the last show, love your country. Don't hate people, because that's really one of the worst things, to be envious and jealous of people. Just look at them, appreciate they're successful, try to be like them. Don't look at somebody's skin and say, oh, I don't like him because he's brown, or I don't like him because he's black, or I don't like him because he's Indian, and I don't like him because he's from Egypt, or he's Muslim, or he's Catholic, or he's Protestant, or he's Buddhist. You could look at him and people, Elvis Presley and different people said it. If we were all the same, we'd all be driving the same car, married to the same woman, doing the same thing. God made us different for a reason. And be able to appreciate beauty in everybody for different things and appreciate the respect for everybody for what they do. But you only got to be good at one thing to become very rich and successful. So hard work doesn't have to be in multiple places. And you don't have to be particularly educated. Charlie Kirk is a guy that didn't go to college. I didn't know that. When I heard him say that a couple of years back, I said, wow, this guy is well-read, well-educated, well-spoken. He's a prime example of not having a formal education. You can have a trade school. You don't even have to have that. You have the ability of being good with people and sales. You can open up a trucking business and then buy 3 trucks, box trucks, delivery trucks, vans. If you're handy, there's a million things. If you're, artistic, paint, tattooing, there's a million fields that young kids can get themselves into and be successful. But I'm going to go back to originally what I said about the mob. How do you start as a mobster? My particular situation is, and I've said it on books and shows, I grew up with a father who was a gambler, came from Albania. Albania was a communist country. And my father didn't know much about education. He dropped out at 3rd grade. His friends, he grew up a little on the Delancey and Rivington in Lower East Side, Manhattan. He grew up with guys were very famous, Vito Genovese and different people. So he took to those kind of guys. And he became very good friends with Lucky Luciano, Charlie Luciano's cousin, Charlie Blackie Luciano. They call him Blackie, very nice guy. I've talked about him for years. North Jersey guy, Lodi guy, gentleman. Really nice guy, actually. But that path of life I'm against, but that's what I grew up near because those were my father's friends and partners, even though he wasn't out there killing and shooting and hustling. He was a hustler, but a gambler hustler, with small time things, swag and gambling and at the track all the time. So he knew everybody from all the card rooms, the after hours, and things like that. So usually, like me, he surrounded me with his friends who were gangsters. And then my neighborhood, it's also your zip code. And I've said that. Where you live is usually a big influence of how you behave. I mean, there's always people that are outside that realm, but the thing that circles your neighborhood is usually what you become, unless you kind of escape out of that neighborhood or your parents are very on top of you about who you're staying, what you're going, and they keep you away from that, which in my case didn't happen. They brought me towards it because that's who my father was a big influence with me. And he cared about sports and not so much education. He didn't know any better. So I don't blame him. That's all he knew. So he taught me what he knew. And my baseball coach, what I've spoken about many times, who had a great influence on me, was Albert Ruggiano, whose father was also a Gambino major figure in my neighborhood. And my little girlfriend's uncle and father were also. So I was running errands for them. So usually to become a gangster, to get to it, is that you're either born in those neighborhoods or you're a kid that's father was involved in that life. And you just follow into the footsteps of your father as a gangster. And I use Joey Molino a lot, and people know because whether he liked it or not, he was going to be in that life because his family was. His father was, his uncle was. Now, doesn't mean that he's going to be successful. Doesn't mean that he's going to be tough. Doesn't mean he's going to be intelligent. But he happened to be those things in that world. And then you have other guys that I don't respect that grew up a little spoiled with a good mother. And that now I talked about him in the last show. That was Ronnie Wannabes' son, Al Trujillo. His brother's a good kid, went to school, nice boy. His sister's a nice girl. He chose this life because of the influence his father had. And his father kind of, I think, even pushed him in it for his own selfish reasons because of money. Now, he's a soft kid, and he got involved in the life because of his father. This is not a gangster. He's far from it. So what happens in this life is nepotism. So if you're not born in it, and if you're not in the neighborhoods of it, it's somebody that you meet. Like it's like one of my friends. They know me. They start hanging out with me. They know I know all the mob guys, and I start bringing them around. And in time, you're going to do small little errands, and then you're going to eventually try to prove yourself because you know everybody's watching you. So you're going to try to be tough. You're going to try to make money. The qualities that people see. And over the years, it doesn't happen overnight. You're around these people. So in my case, I'm around them since I'm literally a baby, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, and I just move around with all the gangsters and you meet more gangsters. It just happens naturally as you're going out, you're playing baseball, you're playing football, you're always at the boss's house because his son's my coach. And everybody that you entangle with in that life is somewhere around that life. Your father takes you to track, you meet more wise guys. You're going to a card game, you meet more wise guys. You're going to OTB, you're meeting wise guys. You're going to a party with your father and all his friends with their families, all wise guys. So that's how you meet them. Then you have the guys that, the nepotism guys, whether it's Al Trujillo, Ronnie Wannabes' son, he's a captain, so they start moving him around, and all his friends start hanging around Ronnie. And they're all impressed, because, oh, wow, you're in the neighborhood. This guy's got a little authority. You're staying with the son, and you start hanging around more and more. You start going to the club every day. You start being a little gopher of some sorts. Some guys are a little more of a gopher than other guys, but you're trying to get in the circle and entrusted by whoever you're around. And by doing that, these guys know it also. So they'll tell you, oh, go get my laundry, go get my car, go clean my car, give somebody a message for me, drop this money off, here's an envelope. It's as simple as that. And as you work your way, and after 3 years and 4 years and 5 years, eventually, intentionally or unintentionally, something will happen. You'll be out, whether you're out with me and I'm at a club and I have a problem and you're with me and the fight breaks out, you're fighting. If you don't fight, you're going to get chased or you're going to get beat up for taking off. And then there's guys that want to prove themselves. So if you get into a fight, maybe they're going to stab somebody. They're going to shoot somebody. Even if you don't want it, they're going to do it because they're going to try to show how loyal they are to you. And this is the way you're going to work your way up in the mob world. And then if you're an earner, and there's a lot of mob guys that are broke. And Ronnie was one of them. Broke his whole life, actually. Towards the end, I heard he had a couple of bucks, but I think that's more so because he brought his son in so he could make money. So when they're broke, it's easy to get in because if you throw them a couple of bucks and you're hustling, you're selling weed or you're selling swag or you have a business, you have a restaurant, and you know, this is part of the mob world too. You own a restaurant, we go in there, we eat, and you're making big money and you're friendly with everybody, but you're not paying nobody. So what they'll do is they'll send in one of their guys that you don't know to cause a problem for you. Come in there, they'll start a fight in there, they'll say the food stunk, they'll say the waiter made a move on his girl, whatever stupid excuse. And maybe he'll try to intimidate you, and then he'll come back and say, you know what? I want $2,000 a fucking week. And you're like, what? Yeah, I want $2,000 a week. And now if you mention somebody's name, that's the worst thing you can do, right? You don't throw out names. So if you're not schooled, you might throw out a name and say, well, I know this guy or that guy because he eats in here or, you know, and the guy wants you to do that because if you do that and say you mention, I don't know, Vito's name, Vito's going to go to your restaurant because he's the one that sent the guy and say, why are you mentioning my name? Well, I had a problem. I didn't know what to do. And he's going to tell you, okay, I'm going to have a sit down with the guy. Let me see. You know, I don't know who the guy is. Let me see who he is. Or I do know who he is. I got to see if I can work it out. I got to tell him you're already around me before this happened. And you shouldn't have mentioned my name, blah, 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 blah. And they scare him a little and they work him in. And if you're a naive guy, you don't know what's happening. If you're a half-ass street guy, you know what's happening. And you know you got no choice, basically, if you want to keep your business running smooth, especially back before. And so they'll come in, they'll say, may even have to sit down in front of you as a show. But they'll say the guy wants $2,000 a week. Listen, I told the guy, don't worry, he's a friend of mine, the guy you had a problem with. You know, I'll straighten it out. And they said, but you know what? I got to tell my boss, I got to put it on record, you're with me. So I ain't going to take $2,000 from you. I'll take $1,000 only. And you make it like you're doing them a favor and you get $1,000 a week. And that's how you move around. And it goes from one business to another business to another business. And you try to be their friend. And as they do have some problems, if they do, then they appreciate, and it's not a big deal. But if they're struggling business, they learn to hate you because you're only digging your hand in their pocket. And they're going to realize that. And they say, oh, these effing guys. And then you got guys that come in and they're gavoons that come in and they want to take advantage of your restaurant now. They're going to be in there 5 days a week. They're going to bring guys. They're going to bring girls. They're not going to take a bill. They're going to be drinking up a storm and you're going to be eating everything plus giving $1,000. So you learn to hate them. And the problem is most of these guys are that way. And then you got some gentlemen that if you do have a problem legitimately and you run to him, if you know him half-ass and he's a moneymaker, he won't bother you. He'll say, you know what, you're around me, don't worry about it. Maybe somewhere down the line he'll ask for a free meal or his son, or as his sons get big, hey, let my son have a dinner. He's coming in with the girl, just treat him right. He won't ask for the free meal. He'll just say, treat him right. So when his kid goes in there, you're going to say to him, and you might like the kid, you might like the guy a lot, no big deal, especially when you're making money. Yeah, go in, the kid comes in, he takes care of it. The son comes home, he says, hey, Dad, you know, Bobby at the restaurant, so-and-so, what a nice guy. He really treated me good. And the father say, yeah, he's a gentleman. He's a nice guy. Now he has a different relationship. And as the years go on, Bobby gets closer to him. He's hanging out with him, and he's got those thoughts in his mind. Hey, maybe I could get involved with these guys. I want to be a wise guy. And as he gets closer, as he gets years, and he's an earner, he'll have conversations with him, and he'll open the door actually for your guy to make money, and then maybe eventually get straightened out. You don't have to be like everybody believes, especially the modern day mob. These guys ain't about nothing. But back in our day, it was more about violence. It was if you can handle a situation, you're violent. They wanted you around because there's not a lot of capable, violent guys. And people say, and I'll use an example, Steve Catalano was my friend since we were kids, 10 years old, but a dummy. And I hate to say that because he just died, right? Later on in life, whatever, I told the story where he cooperated against me. But prior to that, he would come with me. He was tough. He was strong. He was kickboxer. He was a black belt. His father was a tough guy. And the problem is too stupid. He would hurt guys when he didn't have to. He would bully guys. He would take too much off guys. So you can't teach intelligence and tough guy, right? Because hurting guys when you shouldn't doesn't make you a tough guy. It makes you an idiot. And then there's guys that we used to call, just throw a human bullet. You just throw him out there. You don't give a shit what happens to him. He's going to do something stupid. Eventually he's getting killed or go to jail. You're just going to be careful how you maneuver him so you don't get caught up in his case. But you can't trust him. But you could send him anywhere. And he's a dummy. He's going to get caught. So you're going to have some of those guys. And so it's very hard to find that guy that knows the street, is intelligent enough to make money, knows the mob. And I used this story with somebody else. There was a guy that owned a bar and a club, and he wanted me to take care of something for him. And he was offering me all kinds of money, and I didn't take it. I didn't take it because I knew, and I told him, if I take it from you, you're going to hate me anyway. I had money. I owned businesses. I was moving all over the place, making a ton of money. So I wanted to be involved with the guy, just didn't know how. And I worked out a system with him where I told him I'll help him with his machines, I'll help him with the liquor, and whatever he's paying now, we'll cut that price down where he makes more and I get an end. So that's how I ended up working with him. I got him all liquor salesmen, giving him better prices than he was making, and say I saved him $1,500, me and him would split $750 each. The machine business was always easy business to do, whether it was pool tables, jukeboxes, joker poker games. They're usually getting a 60-40 split against them. You just flip it around and tell them, now with me, you get to 60, I get to 40. And they love you for it. So now it's a different relationship. So when you make money with guys like this, it's better to have the attitude of let them make the lion's share and you helping them at the same time, and they're going to be your friends forever and you're going to earn. And then you'll have other opportunities through friends of his, and excuse me, I hit this. You'll have other opportunities in other business through his friends that he'll put you in touch with because now he trusts you. These are the way guys are getting involved in the mob. And then you have guys that stayed with me their whole lives and with other guys their whole lives. And eventually you're pushing them to put work in, whether it's baseball batting somebody, beating somebody up, the way they do it, the way you talk to them. It depends. Each situation's different. It's like the gambling business. If somebody beats you for $20,000 and you pay, and then he plays with you, and he loses $5,000 a week later, a month later, 2 weeks later, he comes up empty. That guy you're not going to have a lot of patience for. You're going to tell him, you just fucking robbed me because you took the 20 dimes off me. 20,000 for people who don't know what that means. You take the 20 dimes off me, and then you come up empty when you lose $5,000? No, you better have that money in 2 days. And if he doesn't have the money, he's getting hurt right away. Now, there's another guy that loses $10,000 to you, and he paid it. Then he loses $3,000, he paid you. Then he loses $7,000, and he comes up empty. Him, you're not going to be too pushy with. You're going to tell him, come on, what are you doing? You're gambling like a nut. Eric, you're gambling like a nut. You're going way over your head. I don't got it. I got to, listen, how much you got? I had $7,000, I got $1,000. All right, give me the $1,000 and make payments and don't bet no more. Now usually these guys that gamble, like they're going to bet with somebody else anyway. But you're going to warn them, don't bet with nobody else. You're going to work a deal with him. He's going to pay you a couple $100 a week. You don't juice him because you want to play it back. And then when he comes back, you put him on a limit, 300, 400, 500. He's going to cry about it. Why do you got me on a limit? I got you on a limit because you can't control yourself, and I'm doing you a favor because I don't want to hurt you. And eventually you're going to get hurt if you keep this up, whether it's me or somebody else you're playing with. So there's a way to maneuver, but you got to also know how to talk to them. So when you have these guys that are around, they're too stupid. They don't know how to talk. It's like bouncers in my nightclub. You tell them guys can't come in with a hat, and they're too stupid. They touch the guy's hat. They put their hands on their head. And I used to get mad. I'd tell them, listen, are you dumb or something? And you'd fire them. Why would you touch a guy's head for? Well, you said no hats. I say it for a reason, number one, so we can justify when we want to let certain guys in and certain guys not in. A guy's wearing a hat and he's with two beautiful women, we let him in. A guy that comes in with four guys and they dress like bums and we think they have no money or they're going to be trouble, you say, I'm sorry, you can't come in because you got a hat on. I mean, but there is no common sense for the most part, and I've said this all the time. There's 98% of idiots in the mob. You have 2% of the smart, 1% of the big earners, the rest are all sheep, and you got 1% are actually legitimately tough. They do things on their own. They don't need 10 guys with them. They're educated. They know how to talk. They know how to walk. They know how to maneuver. They got the swag in them. They got the hustle in them. And then you got dummies. Most of them are the dummies. Most of them have got big mouths. Most of them are insecure. Most of them are cowards. Most of them can't make 2 cents. They're deadbeats. So when you go in that world, it's unique. And to learn that world, it's an education like you go to school. You learn from being around people, and they teach you good things. I mean, you go around Gotti since you're young, and you learn a lot of things about him, right? He didn't like the flashiness at the club. And, I would come around with Corvette convertibles. He didn't like them. I brought them. If it was somebody else, I think he would have really abused him. He would tell me, don't bring it, then I'd bring it, and he didn't really say nothing, let you get away with it. But he would also enforce certain things, dressing certain way. He wanted you dressed. He didn't want you to look like bums when you go out. If you look like a clown, he'd tell you go home and change. Eating habits, being polite to people, being good to the people in the neighborhood. This phone's so there's different things they're going to start teaching you. Jewelry. I remember one time I came in, I had 3 rings on a finger, on each finger. I was a kid. I was making money, and I was sitting there next to Angelo Ruggiero and Charles at the time, who wore 4 rings on his finger. And he goes, kid, what the F is that? And I'm like, what? And I go, you don't like them? I thought he meant the style of the ring. He goes, 3 rings on those fingers. He says, I should chop 2 of them off. I was laughing. But again, you know them in a different way. Like, they're joking, but they're still telling you look stupid. And as a kid, you start thinking, you don't know any better because you're learning as you go. Who you're around, they're teaching you, how to behave, what kind of cars they want you to drive. And we're all driving Lincolns and Caddies. So back in those days, that's what the big cars were. Years later, it became the Benz. But there's etiquette that goes on with the life and how you get in and how you work and how you move. And it's over a period of time. And there's guys that have been hanging around for 30 and 40 years back then that never got straightened out. They just didn't have it in them. And eventually they just make them because they've been hanging around. They'll just, but these days they just make everybody anyway. You can have the guy that's cleaning your car. They'll straighten them out. No, who knows why? Because there's a bunch of, really, I got to tell you, it's a fucking joke. It's a clown show. And that's why they don't have respect anymore, because you got idiots that would never have got straightened out before. And they don't do any work because these days they don't, it's not like our day. There was no cameras around and people didn't talk. You wouldn't know if somebody was mad at you or not until you're dead. And you're not going to know about it, but everybody else would, because that's when, there was no talking about it. It really wasn't too many warnings. If you're too stupid to know what's coming, you already know how to behave. You know not to mention people's names. You're not to mention, who I am. All that dumb shit goes out the window. So anyway, a little education about the street and the mob. Hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think. And I'll speak to you all soon. Write in and give me questions on next shows and what you want to hear about. I'll talk to you all. Thank you.